Not endorse or offer for any purpose but entertainment the views of any guest or other expert on Charvision or UBN.
I knew things before they happened from the time I was a child. At the age of 8, I saw a spirit at the foot of my bed and didn't know what it was. And in my 20s, I finally realized I had a special ability that could help others. I have learned that love never dies. There is a spirit world that can communicate with us, and we all have the gift of intuition. Join me, and together we will explore the possibilities of the unknown from beyond and more. This is Charvision. Hey everybody, it's Sunny and Char, and today is January 22nd, 2021. And so it's a new beginning, there's a new government, and hopefully we will all come together and really, as I wrote in my book, the universe is calling you back there back there. The universe is calling you that we all have a collective karma. And that really we, do unto others as they would have you do unto you, or whatever the Bible quote is. I think it's very apropos. So anyway, in the news, there was civil unrest. There's a pandemic. Unfortunately, we've lost over 400,000 lives. And in America alone, I think it's over 2 million in worldwide. And my sister sends me this article that I talked about last week, and it's the truth is out there. Perhaps CIA releases thousands of UFO files. Now, there's all this chaos going on in the world, and then they're sneaking in that UFOs exist. So I thought I would bring on my favorite UFO guy, Brad Olsen, and talk about UFOs, because there's so much we don't know, and he knows a lot about it. So Brad, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Char, it's always great to talk to you as your special UFO guy. And wow, really big breaking news
right?
that has been dropped on us. It's kind of interesting, the timing and why now and what it's all about. These files that the CIA, literally thousands of files dropped by the CIA
and
now during all that's going on.
Do you know what any of those files say at all, or are those released?
I do, yeah. It's very interesting. It really runs the gamut, all the way from explosions in Russia town to first account sightings near Azerbaijan, to a whole bunch of government files, and the document dumps just as UFOs are on the heels of Congress in December requiring in their government funding bill at the end of December, which included a $900 billion coronavirus stimulus. They inserted it in there to say that the Secretary of Defense had to release a report on UFOs, although now they call them unidentified aerial phenomenon, which can also cover the gamut of what's going on.
Wow. So do you know what I always think about? They have such advanced technology that there must, I've always been told through the years, through my spirit guides and the wisdom that's been given down to me, I'm not saying it comes from me, it comes through me, that the medicine of the future is electromagnetic energy medicine. And I always think that there must be some secrets or something that they must have that can help heal the planet in some way. But I know there's good and bad UFO people, but do you know anything about that?
The electromagnetic fields, yeah, as well as how it relates to healing or new medicine. They're called the med beds, and these are suppressed technologies. Well, suppressed just because they're so effective, they could essentially make standardized medicine as we know it obsolete. So, as we know, the big pharma and big medical are hugely funded and supporting lobbyists in DC to support their campaigns.
Right.
So these kind of technologies, if released, would have a devastating effect on these very large industries. But with the new promise,
go ahead.
Was going to say there's the JSARA and NESARA in this country are proposals to bring forth over 6,000 patents which have been withheld from humanity, also including free energy, but also medical technology and 0 point for UFOs. So I kind of think they're all tied together, Char. This data dump by the CIA of thousands of documents, sort of conditioning the public to get ready for some bombshell revelations, which may be right around the corner.
And then the stock market, I mean, can you imagine if they brought technology to help us with energy, if they brought technology to help us with global warming, and medicine, like this coronavirus, the COVID-19? You know, I spoke to, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I spoke to a healer that I'm very respect very much. He says this is not the last coronavirus that's going to happen in our world, like that. This is just one for now. But I'm not saying he didn't say like it's going to happen next week or the week after or whatever. But the thing is that this virus keeps mutating and becomes more contagious. So do you think that there's information out there that can help heal our planet in any way?
I really do. And it's been suppressed because the potential of these med beds and new breakthrough medical practices would mean that humans could live to be 200 years old. We could live a lot longer. We could live a lot healthier. We could even do age regression. Now, isn't it interesting when Billy Meyer met the Pleiadians or other ET encounters of benevolent ETs who look very much like us, very human-like, when asked how old they were, they would say they're in their hundreds, but they look like they're 30 years old. Well, and so this is part of the technology that they use.
Well, two things I want to say. Number one, plastic surgeons are going to make a lot of money. Live till we're 200. Number two, I do know about the lost Lemurians, and that also live supposedly in the land under the land at Mount Shasta and other places. So, you know, are they energies or are they physical beings that are the lost Lemurians? Do you know?
Well, I would propose that they're a little bit of both. They're inner terrestrials living inside the Earth. They're also ultra terrestrials able to come and go out of our third dimensional reality. And they probably have craft that could fly interstellar journeys. So they're extraterrestrial as well.
Well, but
they're of this Earth and they live here. So in many ways, they are granted the rights in the Prime Directive to be able to operate here on this planet.
And have you ever had an experience meeting any extraterrestrials?
Well, that's called CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and that's face-to-face encounters, and I have not. But I've had plenty of CE3, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, similar to the movie when you see craft or inexplainable lights or these unidentified aerial phenomenons in the sky. this is really interesting. I'm glad you brought up Mount Shasta, because most UFO sightings around the world occur above or around volcanoes. And you might ask, well, why would that be? Yeah, because if you think about what is a volcano, well, it's a heat source, it's active lava and other geothermal activities, but it's also massive cavities underneath the volcanoes itself. So if we're talking about ultra-terrestrials that have a way to transition through our third dimensional reality to other dimensional states, perhaps the heat or perhaps the mountain itself wouldn't be so much as a boundary, but more protection to give them a place to go without having humans be able to see them or our military harass them.
Go ahead.
Millions of UFO sightings have occurred at volcanoes, including Mount Shasta, including Mount Adams up by the Sea Ranch, where I have personally seen dozens of sightings.
Well, do you think that the volcanic eruption gives them an energy that they can maybe fuel on?
That's a great question, and that is presumed why they're attracted to volcanoes, is because they can charge their ships through this volcanic energy and use it in a positive way rather than burning them up and being rather detrimental for our crafts. If our planes were to fly into a volcano, for example, I'm sure they would burn up from the heat. But there are even videos of them showing a beam of energy going down to the volcanoes, so they're charging up directly, it would appear. Outside of Mexico City is one of the biggest volcanoes. It is active, and it's where literally millions of people have seen UFOs, so much so that they have a camera there filming all the time, and that's why I've seen this video of a ship charging up over that volcano.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
so you go down to you go down to Latin America. As I was in South America 2 years ago, Char, and the people down there really kind of take it nonchalantly. They're very accepting of the idea that UFOs exist and extraterrestrials are out there and even interact with the people. It's long been said that the people of Peru, who have museums with elongated skulls and DNA tests, have come back and said they're not human, and they're resolved to get this information out and totally fine with the idea that extraterrestrials live among us. I think in our country we've been conditioned, whether it be through the military or the media, to be afraid of YouTube or UFOs, and also with the mass media. You notice how almost all the movies we see about UFOs, it's invasion and destruction, and they're here to conquer us. But really, that's never happened, and they're probably here to observe us and hopefully see us get our act together down here and then befriend us. That would be the day I would love to see.
I would love
so we can resolve our problems and sit at the table with them in Galactic Council.
Well, even though it was fictional, E.T. Phone Home, E.T. was such a beautiful story. But the thing that I always believe is that the world runs like a battery. There's always a positive and negative charge. Just like I feel in the spirit world that there's positive and negative energies, and that it's important to stay protected. So I think our goal should be, being, ahead of the game. Which aliens are the ones that we can trust, that are kind, that do want to help, that are healing? Where are they? Which ones are they? Because there's different names of them, which I'm not familiar with, but the grays and whatever.
Well, I wouldn't put the Greys in that category, nor the reptilians, but it is the ones that are very human-like, the ones who could walk down our streets and not even be recognized for who they are. They're the Pleiadians, as I mentioned, contactees with Billy Meyer, Syrians, Arcturians, and a whole host of others that have less of a hands-on experience with Earth. Now, you got to understand, we are very old souls. Many of us can even have past life experiences living off planet. And in fact, we are them and they are us. We're kind of like their kid brother who's still misbehaving down here on Earth and messing up the planet a bit, but they still want to see us succeed. They want to see us grow up and get it together. And I think we will eventually, hopefully without a huge cost to the planet or the animals or to ourselves. Well, and if that were to happen, then we would reach a very glorious age. And I think that's part of what the golden age is all about.
Like I have told my listeners that I believe that I lived on Mars in another lifetime. I know that sounds crazy to some people, but I do believe we live different lifetimes so that our souls can elevate to end up at the right hand of God. And I really believe I lived on Mars at one time, and they have found water on Mars, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are poles on the north and south top. You can see there's huge amount of erosion from water that once existed on the planet. Problem with Mars is it lost its atmosphere, whether that was some kind of destruction from the inhabitants or something cosmic, giant meteorite hitting the planet. But Mars had once been a very Earth-like planet, and it still could be. It could be terraformed with new kinds of plant and tree species and animal and insects could inhabit, and the atmosphere could be rebuilt. Mars could be a colony of Earth. Well, I speak at conferences, and I've met several members of the secret space program, including some who have lived on Mars themselves in this lifetime, in their 20 and back program.
Oh, wow.
As part of the secret space program, which is now the Space Force. So that's why it's such an interesting time right now, Char, is we finally have admission that the military is going to go into outer space, which I do believe they've been doing for decades now anyways, but now we might see the rollout of some very exotic flight technology. And I think that goes back to why there's this big data dump with the CIA. They're starting to condition people to the idea that we're not alone. You know, disclosure for a long time has been just a little drip, drip, drip. Now it's a pretty steady flow of information. And with this thousands of documents last week coming out, it's even bigger than it's ever been. So maybe that flow is now a rushing stream.
So in the past, they talked about people who were abducted by aliens and then did all kinds of testing, and people come back and they vaguely remember their experiences. But do you think that has something to do with I forgot the names of the people that are like us walking the earth, but do you think that that's part of it?
Well, abductions are definitely part of it. And in my book, Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, I have a whole chapter on human abductions and cattle mutilations. But when people are taken against their own free will, that's more of a service to self agenda, meaning the Greys have been mostly reported as the ET species doing the abductions, reptilians as well. That they're doing things, they're extracting DNA, they might even impregnate a woman and then later extract the unborn fetus and then raise it in a test tube and then reintroduce the mother later on to that hybrid child. So a lot of things like that are going against people's free will. If you were to be abducted, and the very nature of the word abduction is against your own free will choice to be doing that. Yeah, if you were to say voluntarily go on a craft and not be probed or anything physically happening to you, then that's your choice. But if you're being taken in the middle of the night or
Right.
in such a way that, you're not giving your approval, well, that's wrong. That is about the same as kidnapping in this country.
But have people voluntarily gone on? Have you talked to anybody who's voluntarily done this in your books?
Oh, yeah, there have been some. There are others who started out as abductees and then will voluntarily go. Guy named Sparks, he gives some great videos on YouTube talking about how he'll now go back voluntarily, and then they'll do things for you as well. In his case, he was a lifetime cigarette smoker, and one day he went in and they were doing some tests on him and came back and said, well, we have a gift for you. And he said, well, what's that? It's Jim Sparks is his name. And they gave him this box and he opened it and there's a putrid smell and it was black tar in there. He goes, what is that? Why are you saying this is some kind of gift? And they said, well, we extracted all the tar and pollution from your body and now you can breathe and feel a lot better. So they'll do things for you like that. And Jim Sparks, he says he has 100% recall of all his experiences and now goes back voluntarily to work with them and help them. This is just his one account, but there's many others very similar like that. And so, Char, I like it when you can have data points that line up of the same account of something, and those people are all pretty much verifying the same account. And then you can start putting the dots together and getting a big picture about what it all means. That's the way I do my research.
Wow. I mean, you probably have the most extensive research of most anybody that there is. And tell us the name of how people can get a hold of you before I forget. I mean, we'll talk about it at the end of the show, but how can people get a hold of you or read your books or find out more about your experiences?
Sure. Well, if you want to find out more about me and the work I do and other projects I'm on, BradOlsen.com, BradOlsen.com. CCC Publishing is the publishing site where you can find all of my books and other authors that we publish. My latest book, Beyond Esoteric, Escaping Prison Planet, which has a lot of new information about ET and UFO studies, has just come out.
Give us a morsel from that. Give us a morsel from your new book.
Oh, sure. Well, it's broken up into 3 sections, as are the previous 2 in the esoteric series. The first book is Modern Esoteric Beyond Our Senses. And that kind of starts at the beginning with the antediluvian civilizations going up through to this modern age. Future Esoteric has a lot of the information about UFO and ETs. That's the book that has got me invited to a lot of conferences to speak. And Beyond Esoteric is everything going beyond, meaning no 19th century occultist could imagine the world in which we live today, with a transhumanist agenda to now finding out more about UFOs and off-planet civilizations and so much more that are in this book. So it's broken up into 3 sections, as are the others. It starts out with the section called Neo-Fascism, the new kind of global control system we're seeing on this planet.
And what is that?
I do hope is going to fail. Well, fascism as defined, when we were kids in school, we'd hear about Mussolini and Hitler, who were getting corporations into government control. Well, now it's the other way around. Now it's corporation heads getting government to do their bidding, pulling in the judges and the congressmen and those in government to work for their agenda. And that's what we've heard is the New World Order. So now we're seeing the whole thing come out in the open. As David Icke has often said, there's going to come a time when they're just going to have to roll out their plans for everybody to see. And so that's the neo-fascism in the world today. Then it goes into embargo. section, the truth embargo, all these subjects that have been withheld from humanity, including suppressed human origins. And I've done talks at conferences about the giants or the elongated skulls, which I mentioned earlier, and ETs among us in the fossil record. And the final section is called Ubermind, and that is how we're becoming human 2.0 and changing with all these new technologies and ways that we can also use to enhance ourselves, but also could be used in detrimentally ways to change us against our will.
Whoa, that's scary.
So, yeah, but this is what I define as esoteric subjects. These are information that's known by a select few, but now that this information is starting to come out there, more and more people are catching on, and I'm able to find this information and put it together in my books in a coherent way that people can understand.
So how do we change that negative to a positive and bring only the goodness and the healing to our planet?
Right. That's the big question. But I often maintain that the revolution is consciousness, Char, and it starts with each and every one of us, and it's an individual quest to become the best person we can possibly be. Yep.
Yeah.
And to understand what's happening.
Yeah, I totally
put it all together.
I agree, because there is something that's called karma, and I believe that when we cross over to the other side, you can't hide truth. I mean, there are no, truth is truth, and there are no alternative truths. What is pure and real is real and right and honest. So how do, there's got to be a way to resonate with the positive energy so that, and in all aspects, energy from spirits, energy from extraterrestrials, whatever other energies there may be, with each one of us, like you said, each human being, to work together to heal our planet. And so we have a planet that exists in a healthy way for our children. I do feel like there's hope with this new administration for global warming. I really feel like they're going to do something about it.
And it needs to be done. There's so many things that are happening in the world today, changing the whole chemistry of the planet, from the oceans being more acidified to global warming, as you mentioned, and many other things that need to be addressed. So yeah, let's hope there is a change in that regard, because we can't go on in this unsustainable way with species going extinct every year, to the degradation of the environment, which we all depend. Humans like to think of themselves as separate or above it all, but it will come around and nip us in the butt. Right. And we will be the main recipients of our own karma, as you say. Our own folly of humans will be reflected on our standard of living in the future if we don't correct it now.
The other thing is, I always think about this. I think about, I think that our guardian angels and spirit guides have laws that they can only help us to a certain extent. And we're here, life is a school, and we're here to learn lessons. So we can only learn so much, and they test us with our intuition to be tipped off about things in life, to prevent problems and attain goals. And I just wonder if the extraterrestrials have laws and rules that they can only do so much right now, like the universal law. Is there just certain boundaries that they have to be able to help us with healing the planet?
Yes, they do. They are bound by a universal law, which was defined in the Star Trek series as the Prime Directive, which I touched on earlier. That is very much a universal law. So that means that anytime you have a developing civilization such as ours, the benevolent ET groups are not allowed to directly interfere. Now, let's say we just had World War III begin and all the nuclear bombs were flying across to Russia and China and vice versa. They would take them out. And they've already demonstrated that they're not going to allow us to destroy ourselves and the planet with it.
Right.
So that kind of direct involvement will be allowed. But
right.
to come down here and just land on the White House lawn and announce that they're here, no, they're not going to do that.
Okay.
If you think about it, it makes perfect sense, because then
right.
they would be like our babysitters, and then we'd blame everything on them if we can't get it together. So they really want to see Earthlings, us humans, get it together ourselves. And you speak about karma, and that's exactly it. It's our karma. We got ourselves into this mess. We should pull ourselves out.
I love that. Can Brad, can you stay with me for a few more minutes? Because we're going to take a quick break, but I want to talk about China, Russia, Korea, North Korea. I want to talk about that in comparison to UFOs and you know what we're dealing with in America. Do you have a little more time for us?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, Tony,
no problem.
Let's take a quick break and then we'll come back with Brad.
Hey everybody, it's Sunny and Shar, and I just wanted to answer a couple questions. People have been calling the office and texting and emailing. Do I do private sessions? Well, yes, I do. And I love reading for my clients. I do phone, Skype, FaceTime, and in person if we're in the same city. I also teach intuition. So if you have an interest in doing that, or if you're interested in getting your family together and you want a group reading, I do those as well. So just call 248-909-2427, and I look forward to reading for you. Thanks.
Okay, we're back. I know that there's a telephone number on the screen. Tony, you should really take it down because we can't take callers today because this is pre-recorded. So I just don't want people to be disappointed that they think they can call in today.
Oh,
Tony?
It's not displayed. It's
off.
not.
Okay,
yeah.
I was seeing it and I was going, oh my God, I was getting scared.
Yeah.
Okay, Brad. Okay, tell us if you know any information that Russia has, or China has, or North Korea has connected to UFOs.
Wow, how much time do we have? They have a lot. They have quite a bit.
Okay, but give us just a couple examples. That I would love to hear that.
Sure. Well, the best is Russia, because right after the Soviet Union collapsed in the late 80s and early 90s, right after Yeltsin declared the dissolution of the USSR, there was a period where you could show up in Moscow, the early 1990s, with a suitcase of hard currency and find someone who would go into the KGB office and bring you out anything you were willing to pay for. So, in fact, there was a great golden age of disclosure as it came out of what is now Russia, former Soviet Union, in the 1990s. So they have UFO recovery films shot from different angles, which would be very difficult to fake, by the way. They have alien autopsy videos, which are now out. You can find these on YouTube and do a search. And they also have information about what really happened down in Antarctica during Operation High Jump.
Wait,
As you know, I was in Antarctica
what really happened?
about 2 years ago. Well, there it was Operation High Jump, which was led by Admiral Byrd himself and an armada of ships that were going down to confront the Antarctican Nazis in their claim of New Schwabenland, which is an area on globes. You'll see it as Queen Maud Land. It's directly below South Africa. And the Nazis had made a base there in the 1930s. And at the end of the war, took all of their UFO technology out of the Third Reich in Europe and brought it down there.
Oh.
As well as some of the top scientists. Right. So this came through to British intelligence and the U.S., who put together an armada, not only of U.S. ships, but some of our allies in World War II were part of it. And they were stationed just offshore in Antarctica and started to make some bombing raids on Base 211, or the New Berlin base. And I know exactly where this is located.
Wow.
In the New Schwabenland area near the Schumacher Ponds. It's these geothermal features which create, lakes that never freeze, that get warmer as you get lower instead of the thermocline, which normally happens at lakes, and giant cavities. Antarctica is the most volcanically active continent in the world. So you can imagine the great big domes underneath the ice that would exist with some of these geothermal activity locations. And that's exactly what the Germans found. So we were talking about volcanoes earlier. Well, they tapped into this free energy source as well and created a base. So during Operation High Jump, 2 months into a 6-month expedition, on the second day when our planes were flying over and dropping bombs, all those planes just went blip right off the screen. Those planes and the pilots have never been recovered. They just vanished. So shortly after that occurred, came out of the ocean a UFO. And we tried to shoot it down. There was a big confrontation, couldn't even come close. And this UFO, in a show of force, used a laser weapon, much like a directed energy weapon as we know today, and sliced one of our ships in half. Sank it to the bottom of the ocean with a great loss of life. At that point, Admiral Byrd called off the expedition, and he was going back up through Chile. He had a journalist on board, and he maybe was saying things he shouldn't have, but told the journalist that we will be confronted with a new enemy that has the ability to fly pole to pole at incredible speeds.
Whoa.
Well, Char, as far as I know, we still don't have craft that can do that.
No.
Nor do we have known directed energy weapons that could slice a ship in half. And this all occurred at the end of 1946. So you can see there's a big lapse in the technology. And this all came out from this former Soviet Union data dump when people were buying material from the KGB. And then there was also a documentary, which you can still find on YouTube as well. It's in Russian, but there are subtitles. So as I was saying earlier about people in Latin America being pretty content with the idea that aliens walk among us here on the planet, a lot of countries around the world, including Russia and some of the communist countries, they seem to be okay with it too. They seem to be all right with the idea that there are ET groups that ally with certain other groups. And maybe they're doing this as a way to disclose perhaps the danger of aligning with some of these malevolent ET groups, such as reptilians or grays, who had aligned with the Nazis. But the Nazis were overwhelmed, and even though they were so much more technologically advanced than the Allies at the time, they just didn't have the manpower or the personnel or equipment at the end of the war and got overrun. But I'll tell you, till the very last day of World War II in Europe, the Allies were terrified that they would break out some of these wonder weapons and use them against our armies, and rightfully so, because had the war gone on for just 6 months longer, the Third Reich was very close to acquiring a nuclear bomb and other wonder weapons that could have stopped the Allies in their tracks, or even flown over New York City. They were doing test runs with some planes they have to drop a nuclear payload on some of our cities, and that could have certainly ensued for peace by doing that.
Yeah, but thank God that didn't happen. So I'm still fascinated with the positive aliens and the positive UFOs, I forgot what the aliens, whatever you call them. And I still have this thing in my head that they have, like, they can shine a light on you or something and heal any any virus, anything. Change the molecular cells of the body. I feel that.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that?
Absolutely.
And,
well, this is part of this whole medical revolution that could be taking place.
And the other
people
thing,
who have worked on this have talked in terms of, if you want to understand the future of medicine, think in terms of sound, color, and vibration.
That's
just
interesting.
That right there should be pretty amazing.
You know what's interesting about that? I've been talking to a lot of people who have had near-death experiences for my new book that I'm writing, and they say that the music is not, when they go, they're proclaimed dead and they experience the white light and going to heaven, but then they come back to talk about it. And they say music is not like music we know. We like feel music. Color's not like color we understand. We almost become the color. We feel it. And so that says to me that there's a similarity between what the healing powers that they have is similar. And I don't know if you've ever been to the Integratron. Have you ever been to the Integratron?
Oh, I sure have, right near Giant Rock in Joshua Tree.
Right. Because I take my people there, the people who, when I give retreats, I do inclusion retreats, and I take them there. And there's for people, I've talked about this to you guys who are listening. It's a place in the middle of the desert that was built by a man named George, who was guided by UFOs to build this domed structure, and there's no nails in it, and the acoustics are incredible. You can stand on one side of the room and whisper, and the person way on the other side of the room can hear you if you're directly in front of them. There's when you're in the top of it, there's an echo that is like incredible. And there's a pole there where I forgot what they called it, but if you stand by it, it can change your cells. It can rejuvenate your cells. Do you know about that?
Well, that's what the building was originally constructed for by George Van Tassel, who said quite directly that this information was given to him by benevolent ETs. I met his nephew, Chad Van Tassel, at a conference once, and we were both getting together for a mixer with some of the other speakers, and I got there a little bit early, and Chad was the only one there. So I had his ear, and I could ask very pointed questions, which I did for about 15, 20 minutes till everybody else got there, and was asking him what the Integratron was, how it was built, who the ETs were, and so they would come down and directly work with him. And there were witnesses who would say that they would come and make a delivery, maybe some copper wire, and they would go over and talk to these tall, blonde-haired guys who were doing some work, and then turn around the next minute and they'd be gone and something like that. And he'd ask George Van Tassel, hey, who are those guys and where'd they go? And he said, well, those are our friends from above who are helping me build the Integratron. Yeah, absolutely. This is ET technology. And once again, when we go back to sound, as you mentioned, perfect acoustics in the Integratron, which, by the way, is a dome and a round-shaped building. As you say, no nails, no metal built into it. And George Van Tassel was just about to go online with this, and the notorious Men in Black sabotaged it, and it's never been operational in full. Well, aspects of it still do, as you mentioned with the pole. But what it would do is much like these med beds that you would go inside the Integratron, it would turn on and it would create a huge amount of negative ions. And those negative ions could serve to regenerate your cells and even make you become a lot younger, to anti-aging. And this is probably why ETs that are hundreds of years old that look like they're in their 30s.
Right.
And it could even potentially take a woman who is elderly and has been past menopause to have kids again in her 80s or 90s. It's been said that this technology has that promise.
Well, I try to stand on that by that pole as long as I can. But here's the thing, like, just so everybody knows that we need to keep the Integratron going, and they do sound baths there, and they're doing virtual sound baths. So you guys can Google the Integratron in Landers, California, and you can literally experience that energy. Okay, so Brad, tell us again what about your new book, or what's the best. I want you to promote whatever you want. What's good?
Sure. Well, the new book is called Beyond Esoteric, Escaping Prison Planet. Do have some information about the med beds and other things we've talked about on this call. I like to tell people to go to your local bookstore, support small businesses. You can order it there just as easily as you could get it through Amazon or another online retailer. But you can also go to cccpublishing.com, order it through there, and those orders come through my office, and I'm able to sign copies of books on the way out that way. And you can also read about all the other books I have in the Esoteric series, and Beyond Esoteric is my 10th book. So I've been doing this for quite a while, and CCC Publishing is the website for that, bradolsen.com if you want to know more about me, or the esotericseries.com just gives a breakdown of the 3 books with links to other sites related to this material, including my YouTube channel, which has a lot of videos about the audiobook chapters that I recorded are there to watch for free. And that's CCC Publishing Esoteric Series. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, Brad, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, and I hope you'll come back, will you?
Oh, absolutely, Char. You know, we're bros and sisters, and I love talking to you, and you ask such great questions. So anytime.
Great. Well, it's an honor. It's an honor and a pleasure. Okay, everybody, that's it for now. Sunny and I will be back with Tony next week. And remember, intuition will take you places logic never could. Take good care. Bye-bye.